The African American Legend series highlights the accomplishments of blacks in areas varied as politics, sports, aviation, business, literature, religion, and hospitality. We'll explore how African Americans have succeeded in areas where they'd been previously excluded because of segregation, racism, and lack of opportunity. I'm your host, Dr. Roscoe C. Brown Jr., and with us today is Aaron McCargo Jr., Food Network chef. Hi, Aaron.
How you doing, Doc?
Now, we're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about you. How did you get involved in being a cook, a chef?
Man, this story's been around. I'm embarrassed sometimes, but I've learned to accept the Easy Bake Oven story. You know, I come from a large family. I have 4 brothers, 2 sisters, well, really 3 plus me, so 6 kids and my parents. And, you know, we were always trying to just have fun in the house. My parents didn't let us out much because of where I come from, and they wanted us to be close-knit and didn't want us involved in it.
You come from Camden?
I come from Camden, New Jersey,
Yes.
absolutely. And I'm proud to say, you know, that there are good things that come from Camden. And so in hanging out with my sisters and brothers in the room, we would play around, and I would go to the Easy Bake Oven and start putting things in there and start making little snacks. And before you know it, I got into looking at my mom's Betty Crocker books, and we had this coupon box. I would go through that box and look at the food and get excited. And everything just started to evolve. And then sitting at the dinner, I used to get in trouble for eating fast and being greedy. My dad would yell at me and say, you know, slow down, stop eating everything. You know, you got other people at the table that want to eat besides you. And I said, well, one day I'm going to make enough food that I can eat until I get full. And food just stuck with me.
It sounds like you've been pretty full.
Yeah, too full. Don't tell the doctor this.
You're doing really great.
Yeah.
Now, tell us, what are the keys to being a good chef? I majored in chemistry, and I think that cooking sometimes, like chemistry, so much of this, so much of this, but chemistry doesn't have to taste.
Right.
The taste is what makes a chef, it makes the food. How do you go about doing it? Tell me your theory.
First, you got to be passionate. I always tell people, if you get into cooking for a hobby, that's different. But if you're getting into cooking to please others and because you love the craft, it's an art, it's a gift. You got to stick with what works for you. Whatever your flavor is, whatever your profile is, just work it and study it. And you got to stay to it. You know, a lot of people get into cooking that I've worked with 20-something years ago, and they've gotten in it for 2 or 3 years, and they got out because it was hard. They didn't want to stick with the hours. They didn't know what kind of food they wanted to stick with cooking. They didn't know whether they wanted to be pastry chefs or steak guys, you know.
You mentioned flavor. Is that the essence of cooking, to get a good flavor, or is it texture? Which is it?
It's a combination of everything for me. Like, I think that if you have big, bold flavors, which is what I believe in, like having that spices stick out, having your herbs stick out, like using the garlic and the shallots, but also having some texture in it, whether it's going to be a crouton or a crispy bacon. You know, you really got to work every point from smell to taste to what you see and make it all work together. And I think when you get that, you got a good meal. And that's the chemistry part of it.
But how do you learn to do that? You're a super professional. You do it just like that very easily. But how do you learn to do that?
It's 2 answers to that. One, I truly believe it's a gift from God. I know that I can't credit myself for learning as much as I learned in cooking in this little bit of time I've been on this earth.
Well, credit your parents.
Yeah, and my parents for making me want to cook more, you know, because I didn't come from a background of grandparents that had great recipes to pass down. My mother and father both worked. They weren't really savvy in the kitchen. They knew how to put a meal on the table and satisfy, you know, the need. But throughout the years of just staying consistent with it, staying persistent, and following through with wanting to learn different flavors, wanting to study different techniques. And I just love it. It's just something that brings joy to me to put something in front of someone.
What was your first job as a chef?
It was at Cooper Hospital at 13 years old. I snuck in there. Well, my mother made me go in as a candy striper. And I said, I'm not wearing that red and white shirt in the city of Camden to go to volunteer. And so I went in there working at SPD, putting stickers on all the products, and I found out where the kitchen was at. And I said, I want to go into the kitchen. And I was too young. I was only 13, but I got all the papers signed by my teachers and my parents. And I got in the kitchen, and the first thing I remember making was a roux with this guy, Clement. And Clem just took me. He said, you really like this? And I would do whatever they told me to do. Peel onions. I was crying like a baby. I kept peeling onions all day, making salads, making Jell-O. And from Cooper Hospital, I just continued to find jobs dealing with food, whether it was a stock boy in a wholesale place with food or a pizza shop. Wherever there was food, I was there.
Now, you said as a stock boy, you were helping to stock the food, or you're helping to prepare it?
No, there's a place called Katz Wholesale in Camden way back in the day, and They sold like to all the bars. They did a lot of like to the churches, the big canned goods and the peanuts and the skins and all that. So I would do all the stock in the inventory there. And
So
so
you got to know what the food was, what was in the can, what was in the boxes, and so on.
exactly.
And so therefore you knew what the purpose of those particular brands were.
Yes, yes. From the number 10 can, which I never knew what those big cans of string beans were, to different size paper bags for the booze and the beer and the liquor, to what a party pack of what different colors of plates and napkins. So I learned a lot about the food industry, not just the kitchen part, but the front of the house as well. So it was very, informative and very much a blessing to be there.
This is like going to college to learn to do cooking, but it's not a college.
Exactly. And I tell a lot of the up and coming cooks, like, you don't have to run off. Start now. If you really love cooking, if you really want to be a part of this, start now. Whether it's working at a pizza joint, whether it's unloading trucks in the supermarket and putting things, you will learn so much reading the labels, learning about ingredients. Even McDonald's. I mean, that's one of the best places you can ever work. They teach you the basics, but they teach you, values about if you can lean, you can clean. It's all about making everything consistent. And you got to take those traits on with you as you open your own restaurant or as you cook at other people's restaurants. You got to be persistent and consistent. If people don't want a different burger every day.
It's very interesting. You show a lot of pride in what you do, and you project that. Now, how do you attain that? Well, you said it was a gift from God, but I think it came from your parents and your experience. What took you to the next level from being a stock and identifying food? What took you to the next level to creating your own recipes?
You know what? It's funny that when I was in culinary school,
Where'd you go to culinary school?
I went to culinary school in Mays Landing, New Jersey, Academy of Culinary Arts at the time. Now
that's very good.
Culinary.
One of the best.
Yeah. Actually,
how'd you get there?
My mother told me. It's all about my mother and my father. My mother told me the day I graduated, it was on 17th of June on a Thursday. She said, "What are you going to do next week?" I said, "Well, I'm going to sleep this week, and I'll tell you next week." She said, "How about, what are you going to do next week, and you tell me today?" I said, "I don't have an idea." She said, "Well, you like to cook. Maybe you might want to go to a culinary school."
Excellent.
I said, "Well, I really don't like school." She said, "Well, you don't have a choice." Came Friday night, I was packing my bag. Saturday, I was on my way to culinary school. So, it was her, making sure that I did something positive with the skills and the gifts that I have. And I went to culinary school, and I realized what they were teaching me was great, but I wanted to do more about flavor. I'm like, how can I please everybody? How can I bring my flair to the table? Like, I'm all about spicy foods. I'm all about balancing food, different peppers, different spices and herbs. And I started to just play around in the kitchen at home, use my brothers and sisters as guinea pigs. They would taste, critique, tell me if it was good or throw it away, and if it's too salty or not. And then I started writing things down. I never knew, like, just write it down, just write it down. And I would write down these concepts, and then as I got into one job, they would say, the interview for a chef nowadays is you have to cook. So they would say, cook us something that's going to impress us. And I would just do what I thought impressed me, and it worked. And they said that we like it, we want to keep that style, and I just kept growing from there.
Now, what is your style?
My style is making sure that everything has intense flavor. Now, the difference is when people hear me say intense flavor and being bold about flavors, I'm talking about using cumin, smoked paprika, chili peppers, garlic, shallots, the zest of lemon and limes. It's not all about salting everything down. I think people get it twisted when they say, okay, well, salt is flavor. No, salt is a seasoning that enhances the flavor, but you only need a little bit. What you put in the dish is what makes the dish. And so my thing is about using those things that we have sitting around all day long. Use that paprika.
How do you decide what you use and how much of it?
It's all about taste. And it's all about smelling. Like
you taste and smell.
Constantly. People say, your food turns out consistent. Well, I don't always measure, but I taste as I go. And you'll know if you add a little bit more or less.
You say you don't always measure, so you do a pinch here or you do 2 pinches here?
And then I taste. The palate will let you know for the next time. And as a chef, that's why I say it's a gift, because I can make it the same way all the time just by the taste. Now, I've learned over the years I had to write the recipes down to train others because I couldn't make everything myself.
So in the recipe where it says a pinch as against 2, how did you decide to make 1 pinch as against 2 pinches?
Well, you go with a pinch and you taste. And it's all, but for the recipes, I've learned to go to 1/8 of a teaspoon, which is a pinch. So people don't have to struggle about, I got big fingers, it's a man-sized pinch or a kiddie's pinch. No, it's 1/8 of a teaspoon. That's a pinch. That's how much you put in.
You have this book, Simply Done, Well Done.
Yes.
And I was looking at some of the recipes in here. They're like a chemical formula.
Well, you know, that book, the title and everything was for everyone that has been fearful going into the kitchen, everyone that has struggled to make a simple meal, everyone that wanted to have big, bold flavors but didn't know how to do it. That book was for everybody, not just for chefs. Chefs will look at that and be like, no, it's not for me. You and I will look at that like, I can do this. And that's what I wanted people to do. Look at this book and say, oh, I can do this. It tells you what you need to order in your kitchen because you might not know what utensils and tools you need. You might not know what a teaspoon or a cup is. It breaks it down. You might not know what panko breadcrumbs are. It gives you descriptions. Then it gives you pictures. And then at the end, it gives you a bunch of blends of dressings and spices that you can mix up for yourself and use to season your own food, you know, so you don't have to stress about how much goes in here to make a good flavored taco season, the taco recipes in there.
How long would it take to make me a good chef?
Me and you can do this in 7 days. If you want it, it's all about what you want. Yeah, I can teach you, you know, and I think that if one thing that people don't realize is that it's only as hard as you make it. You know, like for me, computers aren't my thing, but if I study hard enough, I know I can get it, but it's not a passion of mine. This is my passion, you know, learning and teaching food.
Now, your show on Food Network is Big Daddy's House.
Yeah. You see the
Now,
simplicity
why
of
did you
this?
call it that? I know you're a Big Daddy, but how do you get that across?
Well, when I was in the competition, the next Food Network star, I was the biggest voice in the house. I ate the biggest. And
You ate the biggest?
Oh yeah, I ate like a beast. You know, I ate like every meal was my last meal because if they send me home, at least I went home full. And you know, I was in the father, and so my producer Gordon Elliott mentioned to me. He said, "Hey, you know, you're a nice sized guy. You have a real deep voice. You have kids. Why not Big Daddy?" I said. He said, "What does your parents call you? What do your friends call you?" I said, "They call me Big Willie." He said, "Well, there you go, Big Daddy it is," and it was born.
Now, in terms of what you cook, what is your favorite recipe of all time?
Ooh, God.
I know that's a hard question for a star like you, but what is your all-time favorite?
I can tell you my favorite food is
Okay,
buffalo
let's start
wings.
there.
Buffalo wings are my favorite food by far.
Well,
And I know
a lot of people's favorite food, particularly with football season.
Yeah. And I like flavor, so I funk them out different ways. My all-time meal would be a steak au poivre with a twice-baked potato and some sauteed asparagus with wild mushrooms and sun-dried tomatoes.
I'm salivating already.
And I want to make that for you right now. I brought a steak for you.
Now, in terms of talking to people about food, what is the most important thing you try to get across to them?
The most to lose the fear. First of all, there's no mistakes in food. You know, you can always make something out of it. It's just you have to learn the basics. So if I were to
say the fear, you mean the fear that somebody might not like your dish?
No, but first the fear of you messing up, and then someone not like. Because most of the time people talk like, I don't want to cook or I don't want to make a recipe because I might mess it up. Well, what's the worst case scenario if you do mess it up? You got one or two choices. Until you get good enough to turn it into another dish, make it again. You know, that's why you use, you know, the cookbook and the recipes. If you follow it, you'll make it. And if you don't make it right and you missed the step, it's okay.
Throw it away?
Or you call a guy like me and say, yo, I messed up, but what do I do? And I'll tell you to make a soup out of it or make a spread. Or I'll give you 1,000 things to do. But you don't panic and give up. And that's what I find is one of the biggest problems. People make a mistake. They don't make the dish the right way, or someone doesn't like it, and they say, cooking's not for me. I'm like, no, it's not. There's 1,000 ways to do everything we make. You know, from cooking a steak to making pizza, you know, it's how you like it.
Of course, that's the secret of success. There's 1,000 ways to do everything.
Right, exactly.
And you have that knack. Now, what about time? Many people, particularly people have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, back and forth. They don't have the time to cook. We were talking about that earlier. Right. How much time does it really take to become a good chef or to prepare a good meal?
As far as to do anything right, it does take time. I would be telling a lie to say, you know what, you can be a chef overnight. No, it took me 25 years to get to where I'm at, and I still have a long ways to go because food is one of those evolving things like that keeps on changing. Okay,
but take a neophyte like myself. How long would it take me to make me somewhat of a chef?
It all depends on how much you want to give to me. If you're into it to learn, no time at all. I could teach you the basics in a week, the basics. And what I do, because for those, when you mentioned about, you know, people working, having kids, how do they find the time? And I travel a lot. So I take one day out of the week and I go shop. I write down what I'm going to make. Then I go shop for the ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll do that on Saturday. On Sunday, I'll make up 5 or 6 dishes, label the Tupperware containers, store them in the fridge, tell my wife and kids, hey, on Monday you're going to have lasagna. On Tuesday you're going to have smothered pork chops and rice and with your vegetables in it.
And you make that all at the beginning of the week?
Absolutely. And so it's no stress on her. When she comes home from work and the kids come home from school, all they have to do is take out, and some are totally against microwaving, but you don't have to microwave. You can use your toaster oven to heat up some things. You can put it in a foil pan and put it in the oven. The whole thing is that it's done. You know, you don't have to stress about going in the kitchen, pulling out this. Even making white rice is a problem. I got to get a pot out, put the water on, wait for 20 minutes. Who has that kind of time, really? And then you're going to make a chicken. You want to make something healthy. You want to make something nutritious. There's a lot of things in the supermarkets that are making things easier for us. It's just how you need someone to teach you. Go get you one of those bird's eye packs of vegetables. Pop it in the mic for a minute. Go get you some of that pre-cooked chicken breast that's cut up in strips, and you got that to go with some pasta. Put in one of those frozen bags of pasta. You got a meal. It's got nutrition. It's got everything you need. But I like to do it all in one day. That's my tip and my secret.
So in terms of a given dish, does it take an hour to do a dish? Does it take an hour and a half, or take 45 minutes? Or what time does it take?
You're on the money. I think you did this before, Doc. You cook on the side.
I watched.
No, but I give myself an hour per dish because you think about any type of proteins you're going to cook, whether it's baked chicken, fish, or steak. It's going to take no more than a half an hour to 45 minutes to cook that protein. That's the hardest part. When you're talking about your starch, it can be from mashed potatoes to rice to quinoa to couscous. That takes all of 15, 20 minutes, even spaghetti. And then you talk about your veggies. That's pretty much a 10-minute job. So you're looking at an hour per dish. And the key thing is having all the ingredients right there. So go to the supermarkets, make out your grocery list, get the things on your list. Don't go get Doritos and ice cream and things that's not on the list. Get the things on the list, get your storage containers, make everything in one day, and you're good for the week.
See, you've given us sort of a formula. You were saying you have to write down what you want to purchase. You have to indicate how much you want to get.
Yes.
You have to indicate how you want to store it.
Yes.
You have to indicate what you're going to cook first. This is sort of an orderly process.
Yes.
So that even though on your show it looks like it's very easy, you have thought this out.
Yes.
And you thought it out because you've, first of all, learned yourself, but you also had professional training.
Right.
And that's something that's true in everything. Now, suppose somebody doesn't particularly like to cook, but because they have a large family, they have to cook. What are some of the techniques that you would suggest to them?
I always suggest 1 of 3 categories. Casseroles, and a casserole could be baked ziti. It could be one of my recipes out of my cookbook, Simply Done, Well Done, barbecue chicken ziti with onions and bacon and cheese and the little side veggies. The second thing is to make salads. You can do a lot with salads, like make a chef salad for one night. The next night you change that salad up and you'll add make a steak salad with some mandarin oranges and some sliced almonds and things. That with a roll is a dinner in itself. So we went from making casseroles to making salads. And the third thing that will help you with large is stews. Make a stew of some sort. Chicken and dumplings was the bomb in my mom's house. When she made chicken and dumplings, that would last. We all ate and we were happy about it. If she made some stew beef with some potatoes and carrots and we had some buttered white bread on the side, that was a great deal to have. If we just had, and then also beans. People sometimes leave beans out as the protein, but beans is one of those filling things that you can add anything to and make a meal out of it. So you got your salads, casseroles, stews, and beans.
But you didn't say anything about desserts. Now, dessert is what causes people to gain weight and so on. What's your attitude about desserts?
Well, it's funny. I'm not a sweets guy personally, but when it comes to making desserts, and if you're talking about a large family, how to make everyone happy, I always go to the one thing, cookies. Go to cookies and go to sherbet or sorbet, because that's one of those things that it hurts us. We get to eating those sweets, and we think that we're putting on more of the pounds with the entree, with the dinner, when really it's that sugar. You know, and we get the 1 cookie leads to 2 cookies, 2 cookies lead, but you can always leave. They have so many sugar substitutes out there now that you can still bake cookies and make breads, like those date breads, banana bread, something that's hearty that you only need a little slice. When we get into making mama's coconut cake and that German chocolate cake and that triple layer, you know, red velvet cake, we got problems. It's time consuming. It takes a lot of time to make it. It's a lot of ingredients. And when it's around, you're just going to eat it. But to take one piece of cookie or a little slice of bread, have it with a cup of tea or give it to the kids with a little bit of fruit or a slice of cheese, that's a nice snack and dessert to help the family out. That it's going to help the budget, because I know I have bananas laying around all the time. So to make a loaf of banana bread takes no time, no effort, and it'll last forever. And the greatest thing is you can freeze these desserts. You can freeze your cookie dough, take it out when you need it. You can freeze those cakes, those date breads and those banana breads when you make them. Put them in the freezer, wrap them up tight in foil, put them in a freezer bag, take them out, let them thaw at room temperature. You have a dessert. So for the big families and for those that are looking to have a little dessert at the end of the day, that's my suggestion.
Right now, everybody's concerned about health and eating right and so on. Does good health and good cooking go together, or how do you keep that moving in that direction so that you don't gain the weight, you don't affect the diabetes and so on? How do you do that in your recipes?
My number one tip to everybody is moderation. When we get moderation to the picture, we've beat half the battle. And as a matter of fact, right now I'm working with a dialysis company, Fresenius Medical Care. And my job with them, we partner up, and my job is to create renal-friendly diet recipes for those that are on dialysis, those that are dealing with diabetes. And yes, it is a challenge. And then my thing is, if you do have high blood pressure, or you are dealing with kidney failure, it's a challenge to go in the kitchen and look at my cookbook or look at, the food shows and say, hey, I'm gonna go and make this easier and healthier for me. But that's when I come into it. I come into to play to say, I can cut the salt out, I can cut the fat out and cut it back. And then I can show you how to have some great tasting food by using lemon zest, lime juice, lemon juice, fresh herbs, dry spices. These all bring that flavor to the dish so you can still have it healthier and still have that flavor. Because in reality, if you're going to take all the good out of something, what's the use of eating it? So the average person that's dealing with some type of restriction in their diet, it's hard to not crave bacon. It's hard to not crave that fat. It's hard not to crave that sugar or that salt when you've had it all your life. And now here goes the doctor telling you, hey, you got to cut it out completely or you're going to die. No, how about we cut it back? And how about we get to the point that we can have another recipe or substitute? In my cookbook, you'll see there's very little salt in a lot of my recipes. I'm using a lot of canola oil and a lot of grapeseed oil and a lot of extra virgin olive oil. You'll see no lard, very little baking drippings. Like these things I've taken out of my recipe so that you can feel comfortable with making these recipes and not feeling like you're going to kill yourself. And I think that once we cut the salt back, once we cut the fat back out and all that lard out of it, and once we cut the sugar back, we're half the battle. Cut it back until you can cut it out. Don't shock your system. Just cut it back until you can cut it out. And once again, I do a lot of recipes for Fresenius Medical Care with showing people how you can cut those things out of your recipe and still have a great meal.
Now, we talked earlier about flavor being one of the keys or the key to good cooking and good eating. And of course, you mentioned the danger of too much salt, etc. What are some of the other things that people can appreciate from eating? Is it the texture of the food? Is it the way it looks? Because the presentation in restaurants seems to be the big thing. They give you a small piece of chicken with all these beautiful things around it, and you pay $85. So what really is the key aside from flavor?
And you hit it on the head. Aside from flavor, it's eye appeal, number one. We always believe if it looks good, it's going to taste good. Now, it's been proven that sometimes it looks great and it tastes like crap. But for the most part, if it looks good, it tastes good. Secondly, you can jazz up a plate with just the way you present it. With that same little piece of chicken, I can surround it with colorful vegetables, and you'll never know that it's a healthy dish. Grilled chicken breast with some asparagus and some mushrooms and some tomatoes that are grilled and sorted out on a plate in a nice way, drizzled with a little bit of balsamic vinegar. You're like, wow. And you don't know, you just helped your diet, you done helped your appetite, and if it didn't taste good, it looks good. And that's one of the things I teach to a lot of people. Make it look good. And the key thing is, it's not just about the adults. We're talking about kids and obesity. I know for me at home, I don't just take my kid's sandwich if I'm making them something and just slap it on the plate. They care too. They want to see something pretty on the plate. So cut that sandwich in 4 little bite-sized pieces, put it on the plate with a couple carrots and some grapes or a little bit of chips. The kids are going to be like, oh, wow, this is beautiful. This is good. Really take time out to present the plate right. And I think that if you lack the flavor and if you're cutting back those things in the recipes that you can't have, it'll look good and it'll take over everything that they're missing. So definitely appearance is one of those great things.
Well, the insights that you have projected here are tremendous. The question I want to ask now, how can other young people get those insights? What's the best way for young people to learn how to cook?
The best way is to start early and make sure this is something you want to do. Because no matter what you do in life, if you really don't like it, it won't last. You won't succeed in it. It'll just wear off like a
But suppose you do really like to do it. You start by cooking in your kitchen, or you go to somebody else's kitchen, or you go to school. What's the best way?
I say first start at home. And the best place you can make mistakes, my pastor always say, make your mistakes at home so when you get before the people, you won't be making those mistakes. So practice at home and get good people around you that are willing to be honest, because the constructive criticism is a key ingredient to success as being a chef.
And you are honest.
And I'm very honest, yes. So I'm the worst guy to come to if you really want to learn, because I'm going to tell you the right way, and I'm going to tell you where you could have did better, and I'm also going to encourage you to do it again. So you got to be persistent, because there's a lot of my dishes that got thrown in the trash.
And today on African American Legends, we've been talking with Aaron McCargo Jr., and he's taught me a lot about food, and I'm going to be a chef one day too. Thanks for being on.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. It's been my pleasure.
Very good.